A long time ago, in a small, remote village, there lived a very tall and strong man named Kojo. He was well known throughout his village. Kojo was different. He had 3 distinct bunches of long hair, one at the front of his head, another in the middle, and the third at the back. Everywhere else, his head was completely bald. His unusual appearance made him stand out wherever he went. Kojo was a trader, traveling far and wide to sell his goods and earn money. He also had a beautiful wife, the most enchanting woman in the village, and he loved her deeply. But because of her beauty, Kojo was very protective. He never allowed her to leave their home, fearing that someone might take an interest in her. He even did all the work himself, even the tasks typically done by women. While others admired his strength and devotion, his behavior sparked whispers among the villagers. One day, Kojo set off on another trading journey. He traveled for many days until he reached a distant town, where people had never seen anyone like him. When he arrived, a crowd quickly gathered, fascinated by his peculiar appearance. His hair became the talk of the town, and soon, the chief of the village summoned him to his palace. The chief, a wise but curious man, asked, "How do you grow your hair so long, and why do you wear it in such a strange way? What is the meaning behind it?" Kojo smiled and replied, "I was born this way. There is no special reason." The chief wasn't satisfied with this simple explanation. He furrowed his brow and said, "But surely, there must be a deeper meaning. What does it truly symbolize?" Kojo shook his head and said, "I cannot say. It is just part of who I am." The chief, determined to learn more, made an announcement to the entire village. "Whoever can uncover the secret behind Kojo's hair will marry my daughter and be handsomely rewarded." The news of the chief's challenge quickly spread. Everyone wanted to uncover the secret, especially the men. Back in Kojo's village, his wife also had her own secret. While Kojo was away, a young man named Sanza often visited her, and they shared a secret affair. When Sanza heard of the chief's challenge, he saw an opportunity to gain favor and keep his secret relationship with Kojo's wife going. He immediately went to her. "Tell me the secret of Kojo's hair," Sanza demanded. "If you do this for me, I will reward you, and I will never leave you. If you love me, you will tell me everything." The wife had no idea what was happening out there, but terrified of losing Sanza and desperate to keep their affair alive, reluctantly agreed to help him. Meanwhile, Kojo, unaware of the plans unfolding behind his back, returned home after his long journey. His wife, feeling uneasy and conflicted, waited to ask him about his hair. When Kojo walked through the door, his wife greeted him, but her eyes showed an unusual curiosity. "My husband, I've been thinking a lot about your hair lately," she said softly. "How come you are the only man that can grow such long hair? What does it truly mean? Why do you wear it like that?" Kojo was surprised by her sudden interest. "Why do you ask now? After all this time, you never seemed to care about it before." His wife tried to hide her guilt, offering a feigned excuse. "I've been thinking about it a lot recently. I just want to know. Please, tell me the truth." Kojo's expression grew serious. "It's better if you do not know. Some things are best left unknown." But his wife insisted, her voice full of desperation. "Please, Kojo. I need to understand. I cannot stop thinking about it." Kojo looked at her with deep sadness in his eyes. "I wish I could tell you, but it's a secret that must remain hidden. You must trust me on this. If you knew the truth, things would never be the same." His wife, still yearning for an answer, persisted. But Kojo remained firm. He would not share the secret of his hair with anyone, not even his wife. Her anger boiled over. "You don't love me," she shouted, trembling with emotion. "What kind of man keeps secrets from his own wife? If you truly loved me, you would share everything with me. I can't stay with a man who hides things from me like this. I want to go back to my parents. I am done with you." Kojo, seeing the hurt in her eyes, was afflicted with guilt. He didn't want to lose her. His heart ached at the thought of her leaving. After a long pause, Kojo sighed. Realizing he had no choice, he said softly, "All right, I will tell you, but you must never tell anyone. My life depends on this secret." His wife, still upset but relieved that he was opening up, nodded earnestly. "I will never tell anyone, I swear it. I don't even go outside, so how could I tell anyone? I trust you, Kojo." Kojo looked into her eyes, searching for sincerity, and then he began to speak. "The first hair, the one at the front of my head," symbolizes, I am greater and undefeated, for I came into this world alone and I will leave it alone. When death comes, no one will choose to be buried with the deceased. It means that no matter how much you love someone, they will always have their own path and identity, separate from you. The second hair, in the middle, means, sleep is better than death. It reflects that sometimes, the comfort of rest is more desirable than the harshness of reality and that peace can come from letting go. The third hair, at the back, represents, never tell a secret that can destroy you to a soul. This is the most important lesson. Some secrets are too dangerous to share, even with those you trust the most. Kojo looked at his wife, his face serious. Remember, you must never tell anyone. This secret is my burden and sharing it could bring ruin to us both. The wife was stunned by the deep meaning behind the hair, and despite her initial shock, she felt a sense of closeness to Kojo that she hadn't felt in a long time. That night, she showed him extra affection, grateful for his trust and the love he still had for her despite everything. But the next day, as soon as Kojo left for his business, Sanza returned, as he always did when Kojo was away. He came to her with an expectant look in his eyes. Tell me the secret, he demanded, his voice low and urgent. The wife hesitated. She had promised Kojo that she would never tell anyone, but the temptation was too great. Sanza had threatened to leave her before, and she feared he might do so again if she didn't comply. She thought of Kojo's warning, but her desire to keep her secret relationship with Sanza alive won out. With a guilty sigh, she relented. All right, she whispered, and then she told him everything. The meanings of each hair, the secret that Kojo had entrusted her with, all of it. Sanza listened carefully, his face betraying no emotion as he absorbed the information. Good, he said. And with that, he left her, ensuring that their affair would continue as it had before. 2 days later, word spread throughout the village that the chief had arrived in town to address the challenge. He had come to finally learn the secret of Kojo's hair and reward whoever could solve the riddle. The villagers gathered in a large square, eagerly awaiting the event. Kojo's wife was among them, her heart racing as she watched the proceedings unfold. She glanced nervously across the crowd and caught sight of Sanza standing on the opposite side. He looked confident, as if he knew something the others didn't. Her stomach twisted in agitation. She feared that Sanza would reveal the secret and that it would all come crashing down. The chief stood in front of the gathered crowd and raised his hand for silence. Kojo, he called out, come forward. Many have tried to guess the meaning of your hair, but none have succeeded. Let us see if anyone can offer the correct answer. Kojo stepped forward, his expression calm but filled with the weight of the moment. One by one, the villagers stepped up and offered their guesses, but each one was more wrong than the last. The chief's face grew increasingly impatient, and just when it seemed as though the challenge would end without an answer, Sanza pushed his way through the crowd. With an air of certainty, he stepped forward and addressed the chief. I know the answer, he said confidently, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. The chief raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the young man's boldness. Very well, speak. Sanza took a deep breath and recited the meanings of Kojo's hair, word for word. The first hair at the front means, I am greater and undefeated. For I came into this world alone and I will leave it alone. The second hair in the middle means, sleep is better than death. The third hair at the back means, never tell a secret that can destroy you to a soul. The crowd fell silent. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that Sanza had given the correct answer. The chief's eyes widened in astonishment, and he turned to Kojo. Is he correct? Kojo nodded, and said he is correct. Kojo stood frozen, his heart sinking as he realized that the betrayal he had feared had finally come to light. He looked at his wife, who stood off to the side, her face pale and filled with guilt. Kojo's wife watched in shock as Sanza revealing the secret she had shared with him. Her heart pounded in her chest as she realized what she had done. Sanza had tricked her, and worse, she had betrayed the man she loved. Now, Kojo was in grave danger. She had never anticipated this outcome. She had only wanted to keep Sanza, but instead, she had set into motion a chain of events that would lead to her husband's death. The chief stood up, his face stern and unyielding. Kojo, he said in a voice that echoed through the crowd, because of your secret, you will be executed. Your hair, which has caused so much curiosity and disruption, will be cut off, and you will be no more. I am the chief, and I cannot allow anyone to be greater than me. Kojo stood silently, his heart heavy with sorrow. He had always loved his wife deeply, and the pain of her betrayal cut through him like a knife. "Ah, my wife, whom I loved so much, has betrayed me," he muttered, almost to himself. His voice wavered with sadness, but he remained tall and composed. His eyes met his wife's, but she could not look him in the eye. The bond that had once existed between them was now shattered, and he could feel it in the air. His wife's heart broke as she realized the gravity of her actions. Tears streamed down her face, and she collapsed to her knees. "What have I done?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I've sold my husband's life for nothing. Sanza will marry another woman, and my husband will die because of me." The chief, unmoved by the emotional display, turned to his guards. "Prepare for Kojo's execution at 3 p.m. The ceremony must end before 6 p.m. as it is considered a rest day, and I will be resting during that time." The village buzzed with nervous energy as the hours passed, and Kojo was led to the execution grounds. But as the clock struck 6 p.m., the chief had not yet awoken from his rest. His guards rushed to inform him that the time had passed, and now it was well beyond the designated hour. In a panic, the chief awoke, his face flushed with anger at the delay. He quickly ordered the guards to hurry the ceremony along. But before Kojo's execution, the chief, now feeling a sense of formality, allowed Kojo to speak his last words. Kojo, standing tall despite the weight of his situation, took a deep breath and addressed the crowd. His voice was steady, though tinged with sorrow. "My first hair means, I am greater and undefeated, for I came into this world alone and I will leave it alone. When death comes, no one will choose to be buried with the deceased. No matter how much you love someone, they will always have their own path and identity, separate from you. In the end, we all walk alone." The crowd was silent, hanging on Kojo's words. His voice carried a sense of wisdom that seemed to resonate with the people. He continued, his words cutting through the tension. "The second hair means, sleep is better than death. You said you would kill me at 3 p.m., but now it's past 6 p.m. If sleep is truly better than death, why would you still kill me after letting me live this long? You've already given me more time than I was promised. Is that not enough?" A murmur rippled through the crowd. Kojo's calm logic was beginning to sway the villagers. "And the third hair," Kojo said, his voice growing stronger, "means, never tell a secret that can destroy you to a soul. And as you can see, it is my wife who has betrayed me, not I. Why should I die for something that was not my fault? Why should an innocent man be punished, while the betrayer is spared and allowed to marry another? Why should a marriage wrecker be rewarded?" The crowd erupted in murmurs of agreement. "He is right," some cried out. "He does not deserve to die." Others shouted in unison, urging the chief to reconsider his decision. Kojo had made his case with undeniable clarity, and the villagers were beginning to turn against the chief's decision. The chief, who had been silent for a long moment, furrowed his brow as he pondered Kojo's words. He could not deny the truth in them, and he knew that the people were beginning to question his judgment. Finally, the chief's face hardening with resolve. "Sanza," he called out, "you have betrayed this village. You knew this woman was married, and yet you pursued her. You have no respect for the vows of marriage, and for that, I will not give my daughter to a man like you." The crowd gasped as Sanza's face drained of color. He had expected to be rewarded, but now the chief was stripping away the very prize he had sought. Sanza tried to protest, but the chief raised a hand to silence him. The chief turned to Kojo's wife, who was now trembling in fear. "And you," he said coldly, "because you sold your husband for the sake of a false lover, you will take his place. You will face the punishment that Kojo was about to endure." The guards moved quickly, seizing both Sanza and Kojo's wife, and they dragged them forward. Kojo, who had expected the worst, stood in stunned silence as he realized that he had been spared. His wife, now facing the consequences of her actions, began to sob uncontrollably. Kojo was freed, and he bowed before the chief in gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice quiet but sincere. "I do not wish for vengeance, only justice." He begged the chief to spare his wife. The chief, a hint of a smile breaking through his stern demeanor, nodded. "You are an honest man, Kojo. I admire your strength and your wisdom. From now on, you will be one of my trusted men. You will be a wise advisor to me and the village. Even though your wife is spared from death, but she will still be punished." Kojo stood tall, his heart still heavy with the pain of his wife's betrayal, but he knew that life must go on. He had learned a painful lesson about trust, and he vowed never again to reveal a secret that could lead to such devastation. As for Kojo's wife and Sanza, their fate was sealed. The chief had no mercy for them. Sanza's dreams of marrying the chief's daughter were shattered. Kojo's wife lost everything. Kojo, though wiser and more cautious, continued his life, but he no longer allowed anyone to take advantage of his trust. He never again shared a secret with anyone, and he kept to himself, learning that some things, once known, could never be undone. And so, Kojo lived on, a man tempered by hardship and betrayal, but stronger for it. His life was one of wisdom and silence, and he would never again be fooled by the sweetness of false promises. We have come to the end of our story. We'd love to hear from you in the comment, and please like the video, share and subscribe to our channel. Your support truly means the world. Until then, see you soon.